Welcome back to our verse-by-verse walk through the book of Proverbs. I'm Pastor Lance, and this is episode 7. In chapter 5 that we looked at last time, we were introduced to an evil seductress. Solomon has more to say about her in chapter 6, but first, he has some words of practical advice for his son. First one, my son, if you become surety for your friend, if you've shaken hands and pledged for a stranger, you're snared by the words of your mouth. You are taken by the words of your mouth. So do this, my son, and deliver yourself, for you have come into the hand of your friend. Go, humble yourself, plead with your friend. Give no sleep to your eyes, nor slumber to your eyelids. Solomon gives 3 pieces of practical counsel. And the first is financial advice. It's about co-signing on a loan. Under the Mosaic Law, Israelites were forbidden from charging interest on loans to fellow Israelites. They could loan to foreigners, but they could only do so at modest interest, not usury, which is crushing interest rates. That was forbidden. So the person offering a loan at high rates was outside God's law. They were a financial predator. Solomon's point is clear here. Why would you strap yourself to a predator scheme by co-signing for it? He says, if you've already done it, get out of it as fast as you can. Humble yourself. Plead your way loose. Don't sleep on it. His urgency is captured with a memorable image. Verse 5, deliver yourself like a gazelle from the hand of the hunter and like a bird from the hand of the fowler. So you see, this isn't some kind of leisurely exit. It's a sprint. It's a focus, nothing else matters escape maneuver that you execute when what's chasing you can destroy you. This wisdom has obvious modern application. Dave Ramsey has built an entire financial ministry on essentially this verse. Co-signing a loan is, statistically, one of the most reliable ways to permanently damage both your finances and your relationships in a single stroke. The bank requires a co-signer precisely because they've assessed that the borrower probably can't pay. You're being asked to absorb the risk the bank refuses to. Solomon's advice is blunt. Don't do it. Now, the second piece of advice starts in verse 6, where we read, go to the ant, you sluggard, consider her ways and be wise, which, having no captain, overseer, or ruler, provides her supplies in the summer and gathers her food for the harvest. How long will you slumber, O sluggard? When will you rise from your sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. So shall your poverty come on you like a prowler, and your need like an armed man. I can't read this without imagining Solomon composing it on a morning when he had to physically evict his teenage son from bed at noon. The tone has a blend of exasperation and affection that every parent of a teenager probably recognizes. But note what he does here. He doesn't simply say, work hard. He sends his son to school with an ant as the professor. It's a smart move. In the ancient world, the observation of nature as a source of moral instruction was a mark of genuine wisdom. God tells Job to consider the ostrich and the horse, the leviathan. Jesus tells his disciples to consider the lilies of the field. Solomon tells his son to observe an insect. An ant has no overseer, no one's watching, there's no foreman walking the job site. And yet the ant works because the work needs doing. Winter is coming. Preparation now means survival later. Self-governance, the ability to do what needs to be done without being managed, is a supremely valuable virtue. Benjamin Franklin, who despite being a deist was pretty biblically informed, paraphrased this passage repeatedly in Poor Richard's Almanac. One of those paraphrases goes like this: early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. Probably heard that. The image of poverty coming like a prowler is striking. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't make an appointment. It arrives suddenly, and by then summer's over, and the pantry is empty. The sluggard's problem isn't that he's incapable of work. It's that everything else can be done tomorrow. The problem is tomorrow never comes. It's always only today. Solomon's third piece of practical wisdom starts in verse 12. A worthless person, a wicked man, walks with a perverse mouth. He winks with his eyes. He shuffles his feet. He points with his fingers. Perversity is in his heart. He devises evil continually. He sows discord. So we get a kind of a character sketch that almost sounds like a police composite description. Every detail is behavioral and observable. The crooked mouth, because the guy's a liar. The winking eye. That was an ancient Near East idiom of someone signing on to some shady conspiracy. The foot shuffling and finger pointing, they're all body language codes signaling fellow schemers. This guy doesn't stumble into wickedness. He organizes it. Verse 14 spells it out. Perversity is in his heart. The Hebrew word is tapuka, a turning upside down. It's taking what's right, it's proper, it's fitting, and flipping it. This guy doesn't drift from goodness. He actively reverses his moral compass so that what's right he calls weakness. What's evil he considers clever. Verse 15 tells us what happens to these perverse people. Therefore, his calamity shall come suddenly. Suddenly he shall be broken without remedy. So there's no gradual decline here, no warning siren, no chapter where he reconsiders. Ruin arrives all at once. The man who devotes his life to building shady schemes finds that they are built on air. And then we get the oft-quoted passage, verse 16, these 6 things the Lord hates. Yes, 7 are an abomination to him. The 6 things, yes, 7 structure is a Hebrew literary device called numerical escalation. We find it in Amos and Micah and Job as well. You see, the pattern builds expectation and then adds a final climactic item. The word that's translated abomination is tu'ebah. It's something so disgusting it's horrifying. It's used of gross idolatry and the most extreme ritual impurity. This isn't a word of mild disapproval. From God's vantage point over all of creation means that he has witnessed indescribably horrifying things. So the list that we find here in verses 17, 18, and 19 of what disgust him seems kind of surprising at first glance. I mean, look what we find here. Number 1, it's a proud look. This is an arrogant superiority that assumes I'm essentially more valuable than anyone else. Number 2 is a lying tongue. This is one that intentionally and consistently speaks what's untrue. Third, hands that shed innocent blood. This is someone with a callous disregard for the sanctity of human life. Fourth is a heart that devises wicked plans. This is that person described earlier who's bent, not just towards evil, but into it. Fifth are feet that are swift in running to evil. This is the person that is so given over to sin, they run toward it rather than from it. And then sixth, a false witness who speaks lies. Justice depends on truthfulness. Courts can only adjudicate justice when those called to give testimony tell the truth. The idea here is a perverted justice system because truth is withheld from someone for nefarious reasons. Since the justice system is at the very center of all civil government, an entire society is at grave risk when truth becomes a commodity to be bought and sold. And then number 7, which sums up all the rest, one who sows discord among brethren. That's not the climax of a list of things that discuss God that we would expect, is it? We might expect number 7 to be something like sex trafficking or child molestation. But no, it's the one who sows discord among brethren, because it's a root that leads to and feeds all the rest. For the sake of time, I need to condense this. God created us for a harmonious, intimate relationship with him. And to that end, we're created in his image. At our core, we are social creatures. Because we are created in God's image, we not only have the capacity to have a harmonious, intimate relationship with him, we have the capacity and the need to be in a similar relationship with those who bear his image, one another. We flourish when we enjoy warm relationships with other people. We best thrive when connected to others. Now, the devil knows that, and so he ever seeks to blow it up and isolate us. All sin, no matter what it is, aims ultimately to divide us from others and sink us in loneliness. So, those who blow up relationships between friends and family are agents of Satan. We're talking about gossips, emotional pyromaniacs, agitators. Every one of those first 6 items on the list, pride, lying, violence, scheming, eagerness for evil, false witness, is weaponized most effectively when it's aimed at relationships between people. The sower of discord is the one who hands all the other weapons to all the other wicked people and then steps back to watch. He or she is the enemy's most useful instrument. Solomon's son would have understood the stakes here. He'd grown up in a palace where the sowing of discord had nearly cost his father the throne and had cost his grandfather several of his sons. The court intrigues of 1 Kings are a master class in what happens when discord sowers operate without restraint. In our day, we've institutionalized the sowing of discord in what's called social media. Listen, because this is important. The algorithms that govern our feeds weren't designed to make us wiser connected. They were designed to maximize outrage, because that's what keeps people scrolling. The most divisive content travels farthest and fastest. The most inflammatory voices gain the most followers. We've built, at huge expense, a machine for doing exactly what God calls an abomination. Verse 20, "My son, keep your father's command, and do not forsake the law of your mother. Bind them continually upon your heart. Tie them around your neck. When you roam, they will lead you. When you sleep, they will keep you. And when you awake, they will speak with you." Before returning to the seductress that he brought up in chapter 5, Solomon grounds his warning in something fundamental: the wisdom of parents, internalized so deeply that it functions like a GPS of the soul. It's that picture of heart-deep wisdom that we've been building since chapter 1. This is not rules on a list. It's not policies in a handbook. It's a moral compass integrated into the very center of who and what we are. And then come verses that deserve to be quoted by every parent who's ever tried to explain to their teenager why certain images and relationships need to be avoided entirely rather than negotiated with. Verse 27, "Can a man take fire into his bosom and his clothes not be burned? Can one walk on hot coals and his feet not be seared?" And the answer to that is of course not. Fire burns. That's what it does. The question is not whether you can handle it, it's why are you handling it? Why are you holding it? Solomon describes the neuroscience of lust 3,000 years before neuroscience had the vocabulary for it. Contemporary research has established that viewing sexually provocative imagery triggers neurochemical responses remarkably similar to addictive substances. Dopamine cascades, habituation patterns, escalating thresholds. What satisfies today will not satisfy tomorrow. More will be required to attain the same response. The industry that monetizes that neurochemistry has understood it for decades and has engineered its product accordingly. Solomon says, "The man who stokes the fire in private builds toward a conflagration that will eventually consume his public life." Hey, the wreckage of the leaders in the church who maintained an approved public persona while feeding a private addiction is all too common. The fire doesn't contain itself. It never did, and it never will. Fire belongs in a fireplace. Sex belongs in the marriage bed. Verse 29, "So is he who goes into his neighbor's wife. Whoever touches her shall not be innocent. People do not despise a thief if he steals to satisfy himself when he's starving, yet when he is found, he must restore sevenfold. He may have to give up all the substance of his house. Whoever commits adultery with a woman lacks understanding. He who does so destroys his own soul. Wounds and dishonor he will get, and his reproach will not be wiped away. For jealousy is a husband's fury. Therefore he will not spare in the day of vengeance. He will accept no recompense, nor will he be appeased, though you give him many gifts." A thief who steals food because he's starving, that's understandable. It's sympathetic even. Yet when he's caught, he's going to have to pay back sevenfold. Even theft driven by desperate hunger carries a price. Well, how much more then the man who commits adultery? He's not driven by desperation, he's driven by desire that wasn't governed. The language that Solomon uses about the injured husband, it's sharp. His fury isn't going to be mollified by gifts or apologies or restitution. Some damage reaches deep enough that nothing can repair it. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned is a quotation from 1697, William Congreve, in a play that he wrote. 3 millennia earlier, Solomon would add, there's an equal fury that belongs to the man whose covenant has been betrayed. Now, these 2 chapters, Proverbs 4 and 5, form a sustained argument that moves from wisdom's appeal through multiple forms of practical folly, sexual immorality, financial entanglement, laziness, deliberate wickedness, relational destruction. It all circles back to the fire metaphor. Folly is attractive, it's warming, even exciting, right up until the moment that it burns everything down. Solomon's method, consistently, is not merely prohibition. It's not a list of rules with punishments attached. It's an argument for wisdom made by walking his son through the wreckage that folly produces and the flourishing that wisdom cultivates. He wants his son to see clearly. He wants him to understand why, not just what. And underneath all of it runs the conviction that he stated in chapter 1 and will never stop restating. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. The person who lives in the awareness that they are known, that they are accountable, that there is a God who sees and cares, that person has a resource that the person without that awareness simply does not have. Listen, the fire is real. The ants know that winter is coming. The cistern is precious. Guard it accordingly. And we're going to pick it up in chapter 7 next time, where Solomon returns to the seductress one final time. And the portrait that he paints is one of the most vivid and sobering passages in the entire book. Until then, stay on the path.